Welcome back to 60 Miles from Anywhere. Tonight I'm going to talk about a subject near and dear to my heart. For years I've wanted nothing more than to get out and see the world. For a while there I had one tiny obstacle standing in my way, getting my passport. It freaked me out a little that I had to mail my birth certificate in and pay for a fee for a little book I never knew when or if I was even going to use it. It's that only thing that's holding you back from seeing the world, then that's a pretty thin excuse, but one I think has happened for a reason. Tonight I'm going to talk about that reason. If you like this episode, please check out my website, 60milesfromanywhere.com, and there you're going to find more stories on my blog, as well as insights about creative writing. My fiction is available on Amazon.com, and you can find the link on my website. The book is called Song of the Cinder, and it's available in both trade paperback and ebook for Kindle. It makes a great gift for that lover of fantasy, alternate history, and horror in your life. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can check out my website and click on the link that says Buy Me a Coffee. Be sure to leave a rating or a comment on the platform that you're subscribed to. Ratings and comments help improve my rankings on platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and many others. I'm also an affiliate with Origin USA, a company that makes boots, jeans, martial arts gear, and all sorts of other equipment with a 100% American supply chain. Click the link on my website and use code Harris10 for 10% off your next purchase. I've been wearing mine for nearly 2 years and I never leave home without them. I put them through things that would chew up lesser boots, from climbing up the side of mountains to walking several miles a day in far-off European cities. They work great on the trail, and if you polish them up, you can even wear them to a fancy restaurant for dinner. All content is written, recorded, and produced by me, Clinton A. Harris. If you're interested in working with me for podcasting, writing, or other projects, please drop me a line and the links on my website, 60milesfromanywhere.com. Let's get started with the ranting today. This one's called Get Your Passport. Have you ever heard the expression, your passport to the world? It's a stupid expression. It's an empty expression, mostly because it's redundant. Your passport is literally your passport to the world. It's the documentation that provides identity, proof of citizenship, and allows you access into other countries legally. If you want to visit any place that isn't your country of origin, you need one. It wasn't always this strict, but in a post-9/11 world, even traveling in North America requires one now, or at least a card. When I was 17, I got to visit Canada with a bunch of other teenagers. Our only requirement was to have a driver's license or a photo ID. As long as you weren't a jackass, there were no real reasons to even present it at the border, coming or going. Our bus was fine, and we went through only with the Border Patrol talking to a few of the head chaperones. At the risk of a brief tangent, I have to say I miss those times. We had 2 adults and a bus driver supervising 42 kids for nearly 3 weeks. We were all honor students, upstanding members of our communities. We were sponsored by churches, schools, local clubs, and for those reasons we probably should have had more chaperones because we were also smart. We were hormone-driven teenagers, and we were a couple of thousand miles from home with minimal supervision. Everyone came home okay, nobody got pregnant, and no international incidents were incited, to my knowledge. These days, you can't drive kids to a school field trip without a dozen parents along for the ride. I get the need to protect our kids, but on the other hand, statistics show that kids are significantly more at risk from people they actually know, usually relatives or a close family friend. But all that stranger danger shit from the 80s not only stuck, but it grew and has been cultivated into something else. Now, this bus trip the year before I went got stopped by Border Patrol, and of course, when they asked if anyone had anything to declare, some wise-ass honor student said something, which got the bus boarded, and all the luggage pulled out and searched. On the year I went, before we hit the border, we were warned thoroughly. Crossing into another country reminds you of the rights we take for granted. Anyway, we didn't need passports back then to go to Canada or Mexico. I've been annoying people with why they need to get a passport for years. One of the big reasons for this is because I didn't get mine until I was 40. I've wanted to travel abroad ever since that trip. It was a coming-of-age moment in my young adult life. I met some truly interesting people. I fell in love. I got to experience a significant chunk of the rest of the country without parental accompaniment, much less the mandatory stop to stay with family. I wanted that experience again in my 40s. There's nothing else like that sense of terror and wonder that meet at some shady crossroads of your soul. I didn't have the opportunity to go anywhere, though, once I got married. I'd been locked into the mindset so many people get when they start a family. Stay put, buckle down, raise kids, work hard, put all your money into credit card debt to pay for a lot of shit you don't need just to get by. One of these days I might write a rant about the evaporation of the middle class, because these days I feel like people who live in a traditional life of school, marriage, kids, work, retirement are just borrowing from the company store, and then one of these days they're going to have to pay back until they die. Americans catch a lot of hell for the fact that most of us don't have passports. Usually we answer back with, "Why would we want to go anyplace else? We live in the greatest country in the world." Or some other reason of, "My forefathers came here to get away from all that crap. Why in the hell would I want to go there?" Or even the big old chestnut of, "Well, Europe is only about as big as half of America, so you can cross so many countries and need a passport, but in America, I can just keep driving and never have to have one." It's all bluster. It's all the kid up the street with the crappy car that says, "I don't even want a good car anyway." It's just an excuse that we make to make ourselves feel better. I probably said any number of those things myself when I was trying to placate the ex-wife that I didn't really need to go all the places I told myself I would visit one day. When I was in college, I used to talk about how I wanted to go to Greece and how I wanted to see ruins, how I wanted to go to Japan and teach English there for a few years. And then those dreams just kind of went by the wayside. I've heard my dad say that he has no desire to visit anywhere else. He says he's been to Tijuana. He's been to Hawaii. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. And he's not alone with that kind of thinking. There's only a couple of reasons to go abroad, and I knew one of them very well. It's to experience things you can't experience in your own country. It could be landscape, food, culture, history, all sorts of things. And sure, you can tell yourself you can watch it on TV or see it on the internet, but that is only seeing something secondhand. Your experience is limited by the person conveying that story, whether it's a photographer or even what I do here when I share my experiences. It's not the same. The experience is unique to everyone. The other reason is perspective. I felt like people have looked at me like I don't love my country enough if I always want to visit someplace else. But you see, they've got it all wrong. That's the problem. When I've gone to other countries, I've gotten perspective. Things are different. And I appreciate the things more that I have left behind, like good Mexican food and supermarkets, TV shows, lots of parking places, familiarity. You also get to see the cracks in things and what should be changed, how things in another country might be different than how things are now in America, but only because America got rid of good things and the rest of the world didn't. Things like mass transit, affordable food, the middle class, social people, and not being so goddamn sensitive about everything. In the places I've visited too, you didn't need to keep your ears cocked for the sound of gunfire. I live in a place now where that isn't so much a thing. But a couple of years ago, when I lived in a city, it was very, very real. At this time in history, our excuses to not go abroad are very thin. Just a couple generations ago, you were looking at a minimum of a week just across the Atlantic Ocean on a ship. That meant that casual travel was very difficult and expensive unless you had family you could stay with for a month, because it was another week just to come back. It's crazy to think that they taught other languages in schools back then. With today's mentality, people should have just been staying at home and hearing about these places in books, and there would be no reason to ever become conversational with French or German or anything else. There's another excuse that carried over. In Europe, you can drive for a day and pass through 7 countries, yes. In America, you still might be in the same state where you started. America is a misnomer anyway. It's very much like Europe because each state, by definition, is its own state with a capital S. We are bound by a federal government system that handles some laws and mostly foreign affairs. And defense, of course. That's why we don't have free health care. But media and education would have us believe that there are some monolithic culture divided by urban and rural, north and south, black and white, when really each state brings its own idiosyncrasies to the table. Different states have different accents, different histories, different values, and some of that is determined culturally due to immigration and what the people who have collected there have contributed to their regional identities. But some of it also has to do with geography: deserts, coastal, forests, mountains, flatlands, wetlands, cities, and Florida. Most of our states have standing rivalries with each other that come out whenever we talk about our differences. For example, Colorado has felt the squeeze of incoming colonizers from California, Texas, and the Pacific Northwest for years. These groups might believe they have come to see the new promised land, where everyone likes them, but little do they know that when we see their license plates, we're muttering, "Why don't you fuck off to wherever you came from and get out of the left lane?" Wyoming has been saying this about Colorado for years, by the way. The big lie we tell ourselves is that we are a united States of America. We are more like those family members we stay with on long road trips to save money. We tolerate each other, mostly. We accept the fact that we talk funny compared to our cousins. We each view ourselves as quintessentially American. We've been led to believe that we are one uniform culture, when that is so completely ridiculous. You really start to see this when you go to another country. The people you encounter are at the same disadvantage you are. They've been fed whatever the hell it is they think American is, just like you've been fed whatever you think being from their country is. We are a young country that is very spread out. We contain within us a multitude of cultures. Right now, we're being told there are only two things to believe: right, left, red, blue. There is no room for any gray area anymore. You'll be canceled. You'll be accused of all sorts of shit. You'll be labeled any long list of ists, icks, or isms someone can throw at you. Racist, fascist, communist, fundamentalist, socialist, homophobic, transphobic. A whole country of people turning on each other and eating each other idealistically. A nebulous fish tank where all the fish are encouraged to kill each other until only a few remain. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, the world is such a big place. I think in America we haven't been encouraged to see a lot of the rest of the world because it makes us easier to control. Our options are limited. We don't see how things might be better in other places and want to make the changes we have to here to keep going. We don't see how things are worse in other places, so we aren't grateful for what we do have. Constantly being in strife and flux is one way we can be controlled. If we act like violent assholes, the government running us gets job security by making more laws to keep violent assholes in check. They can fill up their private prisons with convicted criminals, many of whom are there because they couldn't afford a decent lawyer and were told to just cop a plea and things would be over a lot sooner. A lot of those people are rotting in jail, enduring violent, dehumanizing experiences because they started at the bottom and saw no other way to get out other than breaking laws designed to keep them at the bottom. We don't get to see that in other countries you can get medical care and not have to go bankrupt or lose your home. In other countries, people get paid time off for reproducing and spending time with their families. We don't get to see that our culture is one infused with conflict, greed, and idolizing sociopathic celebrities. If we go someplace else, we might see in their country too, and maybe we won't like that as much, and it might give us the impetus to change. I have a friend who lived abroad for a few years, and she's going through withdrawals. She feels that lack of connection, which she experienced living as an expat in an Asian country. It's like she got to leave and experience growth, and now that she's back, she's reminded of all the bullshit she was glad to get away from for a while. Our sense of community is probably the worst it's ever been, and I'm not talking about social media or substitutions for community. That's completely different. Our new normal is when people object to homeless people living in our city parks, but raising the cost of visiting public lands and national parks is par for course. We've normalized poverty and rebranded it as a lifestyle rather than a symptom of a cultural disease. Sure, people might enjoy living in tents and shooting heroin all day, but that doesn't mean it's healthy for everyone. I guess it makes more sense to make more laws and hiring more police, to make sure that the rich get richer and the poor stay that way. We're criticized by a teenage girl for letting the planet go to shit, and at the same time, our eggs have stopped being packaged in cardboard, but all arrive at our stores in non-recyclable plastic containers. So even those of us who don't want to royally fuck the planet are given little choice to do just that. We have tent cities in our city parks with people shitting in the street, but they're banning plastic bags at the grocery store. We live in clown world. Classism gets perpetuated because what was common just after World War II of state-funded university for free is now considered socialist and un-American. But running up debts to the banks owned by the federal government just to get degrees that are now almost mandatory to accrue any type of wealth is freedom. Sure, you can go to trade school if you're physically capable of doing that kind of manual labor, or possess the skill set to be a tradesman. I'm in decent enough shape, but I'm too old to sling asphalt all day under the hot sun, unless I get arrested and the government makes me do it for free. When you step outside of your own house, you start to notice these things. When you visit other places where things are different and start seeing that people are happy in spite of these differences, you start to see that the bill of goods we've been sold isn't absolutely necessary to ensure our happiness, much less our freedom. We start to see that people are free all over the world. America isn't the only country where we have freedom, and considering all the ways we can be jailed and lose our rights, we really don't even have that most of the time. So I say get your passport. The process is a little bit of a pain in the ass, and it's expensive considering how many people might not even use it. But at $160 for something that lasts 10 years and gets you access to nearly every other place in the world, that's a little more than $1 a month. That's some red pill shit right there. I always encourage my friends and family to get their passport. And it does take a while to do the paperwork, send in your birth certificate, wait for them to send it to you. But I look at not getting your passport the same way as I look at the Gen Z kids who don't get their driver's license. Somebody else will always be around to drive them wherever they want to go, right? Until they don't. Your passport lets you cross the border and expand your consciousness, to have new experiences, to maybe even discover a better version of yourself that isn't just limited to what they experience through somebody else's eyes, projected at you in bite-sized pieces from a shiny metal and plastic box. And if you're following along and telling me if I don't like it, I can just leave, you're right. I can, because my passport lets me leave for an extended period of time. I have that option, and freedom is about having options, not just eating shit and asking for a second helping. If you wonder why I'm encouraging you to get your passport and see more of the world, you might ask yourself why your government isn't encouraging it. Why is the media telling us foreigners are dangerous and horrible things are happening to Americans all over the world? The last time I checked, more Americans were getting killed in Chicago every day than any other country in the world we aren't currently bombing. Are we so afraid of other places and new experiences? Or are we afraid we might see things that could be better, and that stress we feel when we ask ourselves why things can't be better, like they are someplace else, gets explained away that everything is fine and there's nothing more to see here? I don't buy it, and I've seen proof why I shouldn't buy it. You should question these things. So that's it for tonight. I hope I've given you some food for thought. I hope I haven't been too ranty and on my high horse, but it's something I'm really passionate about, and I wouldn't have been passionate about it had I not been able to get out someplace else and see my country of origin, my native homeland, from a different perspective. Be kind to yourself, drink lots of water, and enjoy your life. We're not here for a long time, but we should be here for a good time. And other trite expressions. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.